There's so many trades that changed the course of NBA history that no one talks about. And one of the biggest made Michael Jordan the GOAT in a lot of people's eyes. But it's really a shame that the guy who pulled it off doesn't get enough credit. I mean, MJ hated Jerry Krause, but this man saved his career. There are so many problems when the Bulls drafted Jordan in 1984. The NBA was coming out of the drug scandal of the 1970s. A lot of his teammates used a certain white powder. Still, Jordan became a superstar immediately, winning Rookie of the Year, but he would be ringless if Krause didn't make one decision. And that decision was to trade for Scotty Pippen on draft night. The Bulls actually drafted a guy named Olden Polynice. But instead, they traded him to the Sonics because they needed a center. So they traded him and they got back some guy named Scotty Pippen. He actually takes credit for Jordan's success.
Well, I didn't get to play with Michael Jordan, but I made it possible for them to win those championships.
Oh, okay. So did you guys actually talk to each other, or did you just exchange?
I had never met that man before that day. I didn't know anything. When he, when the commissioner said Scott Pippen, all of us were like, who's Scott Pippen?
Exactly. No one knew who Scotty was back then. He went to Central Arkansas and was super under the radar. I mean, nowadays you can catch like almost any college game either on TV or streaming somewhere on the internet. But back then, like, you weren't catching many Central Arkansas games. It took Jerry Krause's GM genius to make that trade and to change the franchise. I mean, Jordan has said over and over, he wins nothing if the Bulls don't have Scottie Pippen. The next trade actually ends up with Charles Barkley playing a game drunk off his ass. Seriously. The Sixers missed the postseason in the early 90s, so he demanded a trade. And then his agent calls him one day and says, "Great news, you have been traded to the Lakers," who were awesome back then. They had Magic Johnson. And Charles Barkley is so damn excited that he gets drunk with his friends before noon. But at 3:30, his agent calls and says, "Wait, sorry, the Sixers backed out of the deal." So Chuck's like, "What am I gonna do? I've got a game tonight." But he suits up, and he was literally drunk that night during the basketball game. It's funny, but it's also ironic because now Barkley is ripping Ben Simmons for demanding a trade.
Well, I don't believe that. I know, you know how that group works. Mm-hmm. They try to trade their players to where they want to.
Talk about the Rich Paul clutch.
Yes, they do it the way they want to. Anthony Davis, they had better deals for Boston, for Anthony Davis, and I think maybe even New York. And they're like, no, he's going to go to L.A. and play with LeBron, or he's not going to play. They just bullied the league. And at some point, a team of the league got to stand up and say, wait a minute, I paid your guy. You can't bully me to trade him and me taking some trash back.
The irony is unbelievable, but the Sixers ended up trading Chuck to the Suns in 1992 in the offseason, and they got back trash. They received Jeff Hornacek and 2 bench players and went into 6 horrific seasons. Meanwhile, Barkley wins MVP and was on a championship-level team. That is exactly what Ben Simmons is trying to do, right? Barkley got what he wants, and Philly got screwed, but now he calls it bullying the franchise. The next trade got Derrick Rose to the Bulls. Seriously, no one talks about it. So before that, in 2006, the Bulls actually drafted LaMarcus Aldridge. He became a 7-time All-Star for the Trailblazers because on draft night, Chicago traded him for Tyrese Thomas. Who? Let's just say while Aldridge was finishing his 5th All-Star season, Thomas was finishing a season in Germany. Not ideal. So the Bulls look like idiots, right, for trading him. But would Aldridge have made them just good enough to not win the draft lottery in 2008 when they got D. Rose? I mean, that team was awful, but you could easily make that case. If not, and they did get Rose, they would have had Rose, Ben Gordon, All-Star Luol Deng, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Joakim Noah on the same team. That could have been scary. Or D. Rose would have ended up on some other NBA team. Did you know the Bucks would have had 3 rings instead of 2 if they didn't mess up in 1998? On draft night, they acquired some guy named Robert Tractor Traylor for a big German named Dirk Nowitzki. That's right, Dirk should have been a Buck. Traylor averaged about 5 points and 4 boards in 7 years. We all know what happened to Dirk. About 20 years in the league, won a chip, unstoppable shot. As bad as that trade was, something actually worse happened later. It was clear that Traylor was a bust like 3 years in. He was traded a bunch of times, but failed a physical in 2006, so no one wanted him. Turns out that physical showed a heart defect that required surgery. So he went to play overseas, and while he was talking with his wife on the phone, the connection cut out, so team officials rushed over there to check on him, and Traylor died of a heart attack. Basketball lost a really good dude. Our next trade could have changed LeBron and Chris Paul's career forever. So Baron Davis was fat and overpaid on the Clippers back in the mid-2000s. They were the worst team in the league. Their awful racist owner, Donald Sterling, wanted Baron off his team no matter what. So the trade he cooked up was a horrible deal, and it changed history. Baron Davis and an unprotected first to the Cavaliers for Jamario Moon and Mo Williams. That first-round pick became Kyrie Irving. Horrible idea to deal your first-round picks when you are such a bad team, because those could be really valuable, right? That's why when the Rockets traded James Harden, people are really excited about like that 2028 Nets first-round pick. They're gonna suck. So Kyrie was the foundation on the Cavs that made LeBron consider going back home. No Kyrie, no Cleveland championship, we know that. Also, if Kyrie is on the Clippers, Chris Paul doesn't end up there, right? His deal to the Lakers was vetoed by the league in 2012, but if the Clips already had a young point guard, there's no way they pick the Clippers for his trade spot. Next up is Kobe Bryant, and people actually get this wrong all the time. People know that he was drafted in 1996 by the Hornets at 13th and immediately traded for Vlade Divac. We know that, right? But people always ask, what would Kobe have been like on the Hornets? He would have had Muggsy Bogues, Del Curry. Would they have won a chip? No, the only reason the Hornets took Kobe was because of that trade. The Lake Show told them, we need you to take Kobe Bryant and we'll give you Divac, right? He actually would have been taken by the Kings. Kobe told Sacramento, I am not gonna play for you if I'm drafted at 14th by the Kings. I'll go play in Italy instead. But the Kings GM said at the time, I don't care. You'll come to Sacramento eventually, right? Or you just won't play in the NBA. But the Lakers heard that and they had to do something. So they traded just one pick above the Kings with the Hornets. So I think Sacramento messed up not being more aggressive. They should have been the ones trading up with the Hornets. Sacramento would have had at least one chip because their biggest issue in the early 2000s was the Shaq Kobe Lakers, right? They wouldn't have existed, obviously. Instead of Shaq as a center, Kobe would have had Chris Webber to lob to, and yes, that could win a chip. But one team did mess up more than the Kings or the Clippers or the Bucks, and that's the Hawks. They traded Cliff Hagan and Ed McCauley for Bill Russell. 11 rings, Bill Russell. Top 5 player of all time, Bill Russell. Now, it's hard to say if he would have won that much with the Hawks because his marriage with Red Auerbach in Boston was perfect, right? But NBA history would have looked different. I mean, I know the season Lakers had the same number of championships, but most of Boston's happened with Bill Russell back in the day. LA has the advantage of being in a sexy market that will always get big free agents. But the C's biggest star came because the Hawks made one of the dumbest decisions in history. Now, if you like what ifs, check out this Kobe Bryant story. It busts the idea that the Mamba was all about loyalty because actually he wasn't.